we can teach Claude how it needs to work for us by means of providing it skills. The way we do it is by means of clicking on the Customize tab, and over there you can create new skills, right? Just click on that, and there you can see already there is a skill called Skill Creator. Other than that, I don't have any skills at the moment. So we can add additional skills by means of clicking on this plus button, all right? And here we can either browse through pre-existing skills that come with Claude, which we can enable, or we can also create new skills, right? So when you click here, browse skills, you can see all the different skills that are supported by Anthropic and partners. Like we have a bunch of skills here, which we can enable, or we can also, as mentioned before, create a new skill as well. Okay, for creating new skill, also Claude helps us. So even before we enable any of these skills, let's perform a particular task in Claude without skill, and then we'll do the same thing with skill and see the difference. All right. So I'm going to ask Claude to create a procedural art with a dark background and bright foreground elements that depict deep curiosity. We're just asking Claude to create a procedural art without any skills. We are not given any skills. Without skills, Claude will still, be able to do something for us. It's just that we don't have control over how it is going to do it. All right. So here is Claude doing a procedural art for us without any skills enabled. All right, here it is. Claude has created this beautiful piece of art to depict curiosity. All right, so now what we'll do is we'll open up a new Claude session, and here, before we give it the same prompt, let's enable that procedural art skill. All right, so we'll go here to the Customize tab and then create new skills, and over here click on the plus button and browse skills, and we'll find this algorithmic art. All right, so this is a skill that comes by default with Claude. So we're just going to enable it. So we'll just click on it. You can read through it and see, what it entails. But we're just going to install this particular skill. And if you now go and look at all the different skills we have, we can see that we now have this algorithmic art skill available for us. Okay. So with that available, let's now go back to our chat. Over here, we'll include that algorithmic art skill. So now this step is not mandatory. Claude will be able to pick up the skills by itself based on the requests that you give. But if you want to be specific and if you want to just make sure that Claude uses a certain skill, you can just attach it to your chat. Okay, so we've just done that, and then we'll give the same prompt that we gave this first session over here. All right, so the same prompt of creating this procedural art. So let's see what this skill is going to do for us. All right, here it is. So by means of using this skill, now Claude has created this interactive art piece. So when you compare it to this piece of art, this one is substantially sophisticated. It's essentially interactive, so you can actually adjust these sliders and you can see the all the different seekers emerging. You can control the glow and you can increase the curiosity slider, and maybe the reach, you can control that as well. So it's super cool, super interesting. So this art piece depicts curiosity. It's pretty cool. Whoa. So just by introducing a skill, we can see the difference in output that we are getting, right? So skills enable us to control how the task needs to get done. Now let's bring it back home. Let's see how we can create our own custom skill that we could practically use inside of our VFX and animation studio. All right. So we're going to create a new skill that will help us to create the first draft of bid breakdown based on a given script. So I do have a draft script here for a short film. This again, I wrote it with Claude, and we're going to feed this script into Claude and ask it to create a rough draft of a bit breakdown. Okay, so let me attach that file. So remember, we don't have a skill yet for this. Okay, so we're just going to ask Claude to do its thing and give us a first draft. Create initial draft bid breakdown of the given script. So here we can see that Claude did manage to create a typical bid breakdown for us. It's got the overview of the shots, the shot breakdown, assets that would be needed, the risk register and schedule and so on. It even created this NAT chart for us and all. So Claude out of the box can do things. It'll try to figure it out and get things done for you. But if you want to be precise on how you want certain things to be done. So for example, here we did mention that we just wanted initial draft bid breakdown, right? So maybe for the initial draft, we don't need all of this information, right? So we can control how this work should be done by means of introducing a skill. So let's create a skill and do the same work again. Okay, so let me open up a new Claude AI. Here we're going to create a new skill. The way we do that is by means of going to Customize tab and click on Create New Skills, click on the plus button and Create Skill, Create with Claude. All right. And here we're just going to prompt Claude to create the skill for us. Create a skill that will create an initial bid breakdown based on a given script. Now the script could be given as a text file or a PDF or a markdown file. Based on the given script, I want just the initial bid breakdown. So this skill is supposed to be evoked, supposed to be used whenever the user asks for an initial bid breakdown. All I want is just the total number of shots that are there in the script and the number of shots that require heavy computer graphics work. I just want you to break down the shots complexity based on these three categories: simple, medium and complex. That's it. All right, so that's all we want the initial bid breakdown to be. All right, so we don't want any like fancy NAT charts or anything in the beginning. We just want to know how many shots there are approximately, and what is the complexity of the different CG shots that are there in the particular script. Okay, so that's it. We just gave this information and we'll press enter. Okay, the skill has been set up. We can even verify it by means of going to this Customize, Create New Skills, the skills page. We can see that we have our new VFX bid breakdown skill. So let's open up the chat and ask it to create a initial bid breakdown for this particular script. So I'll attach the script to the chat and then we'll say create an initial bid breakdown for the given script. So this time, let's not explicitly define the skill. Let's see if Claude picks up the appropriate skill to get this job done. See, it is actually using the VFX bid breakdown skill that we had just now created. And yes, here it has created the initial bid breakdown just as how we had specified. It only gives us a total number of shots and it breaks it down based on complexity. And it just gives us a bit of an overview of the breakdown, and so that's all we needed, right? Like for the initial bid breakdown. So this is how we can make use of skills in Claude to teach it how we want it to do certain things inside of our VFX and animation studios. Follow along if you are exploring AI for your VFX and animation pipelines.